thank you all for joining on tonight because I really reached out. This topic came up on Sunday. Is what is the portal? What is going on and what's happening? How is it changing? Our original co-host, again, I'm going to give it up for Jackie Wins. She is my go-to gal. She taught me how to do Twitter Live and has just been a loyal supporter ever since. So I reached out to some of my friends here that said they would come on and speak, and I'm gonna tell you guys, I asked some of the biggest names in softball, travel ball coaches, because I thought this would be a great program for college, for travel ball coaches to come on and talk about how does it affect our student athletes? How is it affecting the club environment? How is it affecting, recruiting for them? Because, they go through the same thing. They're all out there trying to do what they can for all of you. So, and unfortunately, I didn't give them a lot of time. I didn't get that response that I was looking for. And I'll be honest, some of them don't want to come out and talk about the things that are happening because we're all kind of learning to manage it as we go along. I didn't invite college coaches on purpose because they don't want to talk about it either. There's so much strategy behind it. And again, we don't have a lot of run rate, a lot of practice and data to say, will it work and will it not work and who's it working for? I can give you some numbers. I know Jackie follows it also, and there's good and bad. So one, I want to thank you guys all for joining in and appreciate the audience. If you want to give us a share and tell people we're on it, I meant this to be for baseball and softball because our issues are very similar. But obviously, my data points are going to come out of softball just because that's where I reside in heavily. I've got a baseball national director, but we are definitely dominant on the softball side. So I had a coach say to me today, man, when they're going through their evaluations at the end of the year, some coaches are being asked, how are you utilizing the portal? The administrators are expecting some big wins. If your team's not doing great or you need to be better, they feel that this is a tool to help universities get better. And so that was an interesting perspective. That's the first time I've ever heard that perspective. Jackie, have you heard anything like that?
No, I mean, as I've sort of talked about in prior spaces, the portal is just its own beast. I feel like each person uses the portal or at least sees the portal in a different perspective, which is what makes it so interesting and such a stressful time because no one knows really its true identity. What really is the portal?
Right, right. And Mike, are you seeing anything on your page? Are you getting any questions about the portal on the Facebook pages?
No, I mean, not so much. I think everybody, like you said, I think everybody's just kind of seeing what it is. I mean, they talk about it with the high profile players per se, but nothing. I've heard a couple people talk about like, oh, hey, we'll go here, and then if it don't work out, we're portal out, and it's like, well, I think that's what everybody's trying to use it kind of like a club thing, and I don't think that's what it should be for. So, but yeah, that's kind of only thing I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what happened in the NCAA on the portal is the NCAA announced, and it looks like it was in this, last couple months, but it was official in April that the portal, you can go in it now anytime. There's no restrictions as long as you're academically eligible. So I looked up another one, and another person had posted that 38% of the softball players who entered the transfer never found a new home. I'm going to tell you the numbers are higher than that. And I'm not a very big mathematician, but follow me here. I can only get this information from college coaches because they don't give access to just anyone to look at the portal. The NCAA has it locked down to, coaches with access through a direct university. So it was January. I had a college coach tell me, and I validated it with a second one, that there was over 1,500 student athletes left in the portal that were not playing this season. Now, with them opening it back up, some more might transfer mid-season next year and, jump in because they didn't get, exactly what they wanted. But I've always felt that the NCAA sensationalizes it. Like, oh, just like Mike said, jump in the portal. I'm going to find something better. Oh, the La La Land and merry-go-land, around world out there is just going to be a better place for me. And man, that's just so counterproductive in my brain because, of course, our company's whole thing is to help you find the fit and to figure out where you can play so that you are happy when you get there, so that you have a great 4-year experience. Now, does that mean a coach doesn't leave or something happens? That has always been there. And that's the part I don't think people understand the history behind, 2 years ago with the portal coming out, there was always movement. Now, in the defense of the college coaches and NCAA, not one, but several coaches said, well, it helps us mid-major D1s. It helps us lower D1s actually have a shot at, well, let's say, some big stud that just left OU, right? And I'm like, you guys really think you have a shot at that girl? Come on, let's be honest, right? That layer of the sport, I think, has benefited the most. Jackie, I know you follow intensely OU and some of the big transfers. What do you think about some of the most high profile transfers and how it's helped a program?
So, yeah, I've been basically the portal has been my life for the past, couple of years now. And sort of tracking not just OU, but that top elite talent that decides to go in. I think that it has, both effects. I think that going into the portal, as you mentioned, is quite glorified now. And that like chase of where, when, and how, that mixed with NIL and things like that. But what most people don't realize is specifically to softball, I'm not quite sure in the baseball world, but in softball is that NIL is not going to as many people as what you think. And so you have to be one of the top players in the portal to really go in there. And, that's when that comes into play. It's not there for the rest of the portal at this moment, right? Because there's only so many teams who can generate that big of a pot and go pull a big player out. So, it can have its benefits, right? Whether it be, potentially a player is, that won't see the field for the next 2-3 years. And they're like, you know what, things happen, and we got to go elsewhere. But you have to be careful because it's like going into a black hole.
Oh, yeah. And you just hit a couple keywords I want to draw out to these listeners because some of them are student athletes. We're talking elite level pitcher slash hitter. I mean, we saw some, I'm going to call out 2 players on Tennessee that came off OU's roster, and I love these players. Man, Pooney is the real deal. I call her G because her last name is Greek, and her mom and I have been soul sisters since she was in the 8th grade. They are fabulous humans. They were in situations on rosters that, they had honest conversations with their coaches. Man, they were just not going to get to hit the field the way they thought. And they both, had to go through COVID and other things. So I don't necessarily want to talk about their stories anything more than what's public, but man, they've been killing it at Tennessee. Those were great, but elite high level commitments that weren't getting the opportunity that they were hoping for because of the portal, because of transfers, because of things that happened in front of them that were not predicted during the recruiting process where they were having this evaluation. So that's where it is a good thing. It's a great backup plan. Again, coaches quit, scholarships change. I just had a call today, second time I've had it in 10 years, where scholarships change right before you're going off to college. I've had one change the night before signing day. These things can happen when you read that national letter of intent. It's not as sticky as you think it is. You really have to read it and you have to understand it. But that's why the NCAA came up with this, so that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to make the right decision. And yet, like Jackie was saying, you see the really elite players make good moves. I've also seen some great mid-major moves where they're filling spots like, hey, we've had 5 catchers injured. We need a catcher. We need look at Nebraska. We've got a CSA player. That's Peyton Cody. She came and she's doing her 6th year at Nebraska. And the intention was to come help Jordy Ball, right? To bring some players behind her, some catchers and some hitters. Well, that didn't turn out right. And yet, I mean, this kid's there. She's having the time of her life playing for Nebraska. I mean, no shame in that game, and that gave her an opportunity. She had an injury and she had a COVID year. I think we're going to see less of those things because they don't have those years packed in there. And now it's, a pure 4 years. And that's where last Monday's call talked about JUCO. A lot of the student athletes are seeing more value in JUCO because they're not getting what they want on the front end or what they, are hoping for. And they maybe need a little bit more fine tuning, a little bit more time to play. They play double the games. And somebody just said on a call before this that maybe I was selling JUCO a little hard. I don't mean to be selling JUCO hard. I just mean to say that this is a real inspirational time in being junior college coaches because they're seeing a lot more talent end up in junior college and be a better value transferring out than, go look at the rosters, go look at some of the freshmen. Not all of them are on the field. Not all of them are playing in places that they could have played full time or more of an impact. And I don't mean that's good nor bad. Everybody has their own journey there. And Jackie and Mike, you guys can come off mute anytime you want to come in. You don't need for me to wait and call on you if I'm just going off because I've got a whole list in front of me of things I wanted to cover tonight for you. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, how to justify, when you're talking as a head coach with your administration, why you're not using the portal. Well, here's some bad news to the portal. When these kids are transferring, the coaches use the word red flag. I got to figure out why this kid is transferring. What's so bad? And let me tell you, some of the things these student athletes are saying to these college coaches about why they're transferring, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. And all of you that know me, I have a famous phrase, wherever you go with you. So fix you first. Maybe you have a bigger contribution to where you're at. And I had a student athlete say, well, the coach doesn't value me. Well, yes, she does. She invested in you 2 years ago. She put you on the roster. You've had every opportunity to earn the opportunity to play. And it's not as squishy and sweetie nicey as maybe you thought it was. But think about what it is you're talking about. It's usually not the scholarship number. It's not usually the fit because you made that decision, with a lot of information. What you're talking about is things that maybe you have more influence in than you think you do. Well, the coach isn't treating me nice. Well, how are you treating the coach? What is it you're doing that's making the coach behave that way, right? There's just so much more ownership and self assessment because you are valued. They put you on that roster, you have a role. They tell you what your role is. They're very, very good at saying, and I'm not saying everybody doesn't hide some role or something change because things change for them too. Universities change. There was a program that completely shut down and cut the entire university. Aldous, Aldous, something like that. I forget the name. It was in West Virginia. It just happened 2 years ago. They shut the entire university down and let all the student athletes go. Bye. See you later. Now what, right? So the portal has a positive place, but I want you to start thinking about how to avoid that and make better decisions on the front end. Jackie or Mike, again, feel free to just come off mute and I will give you over the mic. Go ahead, Jackie.
One thing that I don't think people realize is that when you're transferring to somewhere else and you go through the portal, right, they are expecting that you're coming for a specific purpose. So you're trading a stress, right? So if it's to start, let's say, then now you have that stress of they went into the portal, they are spending whatever, that partial scholarship, whatever that is that got you there, right, for you to start and for you to perform. So it's not like, oh, you have the idea of maturing in that role, things like that. You're expected to go. And so it's important, that when you're looking at a variety of different programs or if you're thinking of things, if your mind's already, you know what, if it doesn't work out here, I'm not sure about this, maybe I'll go in the portal, expect to be in the portal. Because at that point, you're already being deflective. Are you going to go to that program? Are you going to compete? Are you going to be willing to get through the mud? These are the different things to think of because it's not 100% green no matter what when you come through the portal.
And one of those coaches I was talking to today gave me a scenario where, man, this kid was a big time player, just, saw too much of the bench, wanted to go in the portal, went kind of down a layer per se, didn't have that great of an opportunity either and tried to go back up into a lower level of the Power Five. I hate to say it because winning is fun, but it's not a lot of fun to lose either. And if you're not getting an opportunity to be a big contributor, then maybe you're contributing to why they're not winning, right? I mean, and I say this a lot in recruiting. You're going to see, and some of these student athletes here are some of our clients, you're going to see as you come through the talent level, the coaches know, man, if there's a talent layer that is recruiting you, they're not missing. They understand that you have value at that layer. And I've had people say over and over again, well, I'm waiting for something bigger. What's bigger? And why didn't bigger come sooner? Because if bigger is best, wouldn't they have come sooner, right? So that's some hard concept for people to think because they think, well, I'm just going to shop around and see what else is out there. I think you have to be a way more targeted than that and way more interactive with that and understand where your value is. Go for it, Jackie.
Yeah, I think one good example of this is right when OU had Riley Nugent and Erickson, transfer out to their specific programs, and you didn't have anybody behind Hanson to right. They went out and they got Riley Ludlam from Furman, right? So you're thinking, all right, Patty went into the portal, needed to find a backup catcher. Well, then Hanson gets hurt, right? There wasn't like, oh well, she's from the portal, let's give her time. She had to immediately be at a top 5 program, right? Top 2 program, and perform at that level. So it's really important that when you're looking at those programs, like, oh, even if you're going to take, let's say, a backup role, and that there is 100% that thought process of you're coming in and you're ready to play. So there are risks and sometimes rewards, but to be fair, the portal eats more than it gives.
Yeah, and like you said, you're trying to use it strategically. Um, oh, Mike, I need to add you back in because he wasn't hearing Jackie. That happens sometimes to our speakers when we invite you to speak. Sometimes you don't hear the other person. So appreciate, Mike, that you were smart enough to disconnect and log back in. So thank you for that. And you're right. So I think it's a mistake if you're trying to maneuver and manipulate the portal from an individual perspective. And I think you control less. So some of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years, because I've had portal kids, I had 5 go in the portal last year. It's never something I want, but there are reasons why. And one thing you have less of is control. Now you really have to match your major. You most likely are going to lose a semester. I haven't seen a kid not lose a semester yet on a transfer because it's hard to match all that coursework. And then uh, it's a lot harder to put your finger on your exact destination. It's rare that you get to pick the destination until it picks you. So just like we go through, this major marketing approach to seeing where you can fit before you choose, it's even tighter. Like, hey, who's going to need a catcher of that caliber and what kind of roster is it going to be on? You might play more, but will you make a bigger impact? Will it be a better experience? And most of our student athletes know we use a decision grid. So we start to develop what works for you because Jackie's decision grid is going to be way different than mine. Mike's decision grid is going to be different than mine. And then when you come back and we start talking about some of the challenges that happen in college, we start to say, well, why remember, let's go back to your decision grid. Let's talk about the things you really decided that were good things for you in the process. And tell me, are those things happening? So then when you narrow it down, what I've seen so far is you narrow it down to little interpersonal things like communication with the coach, understanding the expectations. Are you delivering the results they expect out of you? That's happening more than you think. It's not just your stats, but in attitude and contribution and, individual contribution is what I put here. Then there's a lot of team interaction. You got to all of a sudden, I mean, this was my soccer daughter. You got to ride on the bus with 25 stinky girls with stinky shin guards, right? You got to sleep in hotels with roommates that are noisy or snore. I mean, there's just all kinds of other things that happen along the way, but it's the same wherever you go. You have to decide at what layer and at what level are you willing to do that. Now, this is another one I heard today from a college coach. Well, we brought that kid on as a bullpen catcher. Well, nobody believes they're being brought on as a bullpen catcher. but you can travel 21 on the bus. It is no fun to stay home and sit on the bench while your team is going and playing someplace. I call it the snow tarp puller, the girl that has to stay back and put the snow tarp on, right? So you have to be careful of that. There's so many more components now, but I believe more so the parents than the student athletes believe that they are in charge of picking where they go when they go in the portal. It is also, think of this, student athletes, why does the college have the opening? What's the reason they have an opening on that roster for somebody of your caliber? Are they winning? Are they losing? Why did that person leave? Did they get injured? What's their story? And you can't just believe what the coaches say. God love you, coaches. I think you all tell the truth. But sometimes they spin it different. Go for it, Jackie.
Yeah, and that sort of reminded me of, each team has its own culture, right? Whether it some be faith based, some be, all sorts of different things. It just depends on the coach, the school, all and whatnot. And sometimes you're like, all right, I'm okay with that culture, and then you go in, you're like, okay, this is not what I thought it would be, and maybe the opposite. Maybe you do enjoy it. But sometimes people go into the portal for that reason. But one thing I wanted to mention is a lot of the times in the portal, most people don't realize this, until they're in there. But a lot of the talking and a lot of the negotiating happens between athletes, right? So you have to actually look at that part as well.
Oh, I'll go even farther on that. You're not even supposed to talk to somebody like me about, oh, I'm going in the portal. You can't say that to me. I can't say that back to you. I can't ever go and do a search and say, hey, Jackie, I got a team that's looking for a catcher. You want to move schools? None of that is legal per the NCAA rules. Plus, it's integrity and character. And yet, I heard it twice today, college coaches with kids that are committed or kids that are in programs trying to one up their own portfolio, right? They're selfishly trying to get a kid to a bigger university to up their credibility. And it's honestly, it backfires on you and it doesn't help. I don't believe those coaches make it long in the business. And yet, some of the best in the business are participating in this. Those phone calls are long made. If you think about it, the first day they can go in the portal, they put themselves in and they commit the next day. How was that shopping the portal? How was that giving all those college coaches a chance to come look? They all know when they call and they say, I already committed. Well, that was all orchestrated before they even put their name in the portal, which is not the purpose of it. And it's not the right outcome of it. Sadly, it happens. And one big coach said to me, if they're not cheating, they're not winning. So, you have to think some of that it's never going to be a perfect system. So, again, if you're going in trying to maneuver and manipulate it from your perspective and your perspective only, and you're not looking at the whole totalitarian view of what the portal is and who really is in charge is still the college coach. They are still the people that make that offer. But you got to do deeper dives, you got to do bigger shopping, you got to have people that can quantifying and like Jackie said about the culture, they're going to be great pitch people up front. Man, there's travel ball coaches here that are pitch people that don't have any resume to back it up. And you're thinking, why would you go play over there? They haven't committed but 2 kids, for goodness sakes, right? Mike, don't you dare put a laughing face on me because you know who I'm talking about. But that happens at the portal too. Yeah, he knows. I see it more as, man, let's do a better job on the front end because you're gambling when you get there. And I say this visual all the time to my student athletes. No matter how hard we go after it, you're still putting that bingo ball in that barrel, and it's spinning around, and then the answer spits out at the end. It's even worse in the portal. Your options are not as rich, and there's a lot more red flags on their side. There's red flags on your side. And it doesn't mean they're good or bad, but you have to go in with a lot more caution. Parents, man, those of you that think you can go out and shop your kid through your travel organization, through your network of friends, like Jackie said, the kids talking in the locker room, and these parents are talking in the stands. My kid's sick of this coach. We've had enough. You don't think that goes around? You don't think that goes around? We've said it for years. We all know each other. It all gets back. Coaches will call me, hey, I hear Susie Smith is looking. What are you talking about? And like I said, I've had kids go in the portal and not even tell me, it happens. Yes, Jackie, go.
So it's interesting because a lot of the time, and then sort of when as the players started figuring out, the ways behind, the mask, I like to call it, of the portal, and how to talk amongst themselves. You have to be really careful because a lot of people will go to either friends or they want to play with people who they play travel ball with, and then they don't realize what they're giving up to go, chase that, perfect picture. And then you could be, and I'm not going to mention, conferences or anything, but you could be a highly talented player, go to a different team because maybe there's some other incentives and you're playing with people that and then you don't even end up in the starting lineup, right? And for a majority of the season. So it's you have to be really careful when you're making these decisions going in. Don't make it for anybody else. Don't make it for this nostalgic reason. Make it because it's the best academic, right? Space for you to go to and where athletically you will thrive, as opposed to chasing this sort of like nostalgic aspect. Because I've seen this sort of in the past year or so, through this last cycle of that happening. It's very strange, but it is a thing. Everybody wants to, eventually after a couple of years, go back and play with friends and do all that. Where are you going to be most successful?
Well, and I had another coach mention, and Mike, you're welcome to unmute anytime and join in. I had another coach mention, what's it going to say to your employer when you come out and you've been at 3 universities in a 4-year period? And I said, I'm going to tell you right now, because I'm not a millennial and I'm not a Gen Z, but it's a different culture in the workforce. Sometimes it depends on the industry you're in, but if you're not moving and interviewing to better yourself outside your organization, they don't respect retirement. Like my husband's going to retire from Coca-Cola for 35 years. It's not a pension seeking generation. So I think it's a different world out there. So I'm not sure I even buy into that, but you do have to explain it. You have to explain why you moved. And if you're coming in, oh Lordy, man, I had one say, well, I had to take a mental health time off. What? What coach wants somebody that's not 100%? In athletics, mental, academics, they don't want the kid like that. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with it. Fix yourself before you put yourself out there. Get yourself right. And another D1 said to me, hey, in September, when they all show up on campus, we're going to meet in the parking lot. And I'm going to literally go around and say, are you in your best mental mindset? Are you in your best physical shape? Is your academics ready to roll? Is everything approved? And let's go. If it's not, get back in your car and go, because they're tired of it. They don't want that kid that can't pull it together. That's why we have transcripts put up on our pages. You got to have good transcripts, especially in the portal. Let's go, Mike.
Hopefully, the IT guy's been having technical difficulties, so I hope you can hear me. Um,
Yes, we can. And that happens periodically with speakers. So thank you for
okay,
doing that.
no worries. Um, I think the biggest issue that we come across, and I think at the beginning, and I know we'll be going through it soon, but just being in it, being in the game back when I played, and family members going off, and um, I think the problem happens when everybody rushes, right? And you always tell us to have a plan, and you've done a great job, and I hope everybody heeds what you say. But you get blinded by, oh my God, this is my dream school. Or, oh my God, this is the school that I really wanted. Or this is, oh yes, I love everything about it. But you don't actually even really pay attention to what they're saying, right? Like, hey, look, are you really coming in, like you said earlier about the bullpen catcher? Like, hey, yeah, at this school, we really want you to come in and you're going to be our bullpen catcher, but you're just so blinded by the school. Oh, I'll change your mind. I'll change your mind. And maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you have to go in there and understand. And I think that's a big problem where everybody kind of comes in and it's so quick, especially this generation. Everything's so fast, so fast. Instant gratification, instant gratification. I got to be able to post this up on my Instagram and my Snapchat and my everything else with me in my jersey that we really don't go through. And that's where I think, hey, maybe parents need to help out a little bit here and slow it down and like you said, make our decision grids and understand why we're picking that school and why that school is picking you.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. And what I recognize with this one player that was talking to me about this, and this was several years back, is they heard what they wanted to hear. that you're going to get the opportunity. You're going to work out every day with the team. Well, if your talent was so close to just working out and getting better coaching that you could bridge the gap, I promise you they would have given you a little money. So you have to listen to that stuff. So many people hear walk on, and that could be a whole nother topic because, a preferred walk on happens in football, but you have to have some analysis, some data, some buddy saying, hey, you can bridge this gap. But when you got 7 pitchers in college on a roster, they need bullpen catchers. I was a catcher trainer. It's one of my biggest fears for our catchers is to make sure that you're going to a place where you actually have a true physical and talent-wise opportunity. And Mike, let's talk about Texas State. That was a young lady that came from your club. She was awesome. I'm not going to put names out there, but man, she was this dynamic, full-fledged, all-around athlete. And we just couldn't get her in that right spot. We kept, she was a little bit late to the game, right? When you come in fall of your junior year and you're just getting into recruiting, it's a little tough, but it can be done. But your options are less. Well, man, she literally ended up at her dream school. And guess what? As a freshman, the other catcher that came in had different tools that were more valuable. And so the two of them together ended up being this great component. And yeah, they're going to be one of the top 25s right now. That's a great outcome. But they're not jumping the portal and saying they're not getting well respected. They're adding contribution where their best skill set is adding contribution. So that's a great story, and I'm sure I asked her parents, I'm sure they would love to tell, but I never like to do that. But back to the gambling, I'm just going through my list here. You're gambling when you go in there without understanding your self-assessment. It's less opportunity. It's got red flags. They've got red flags. You've got red flags. You've got to uncover that. You definitely need somebody to help you. Our student athletes, we stay with them until they graduate college. So they're well protected. And again, our program has always been, it was a grace of God that it happened because I planned it 10 years ago to stay with them till they graduated. Because once you get there, it's so much harder. This is another big message. I want you to listen to this one. When you get a commitment, it doesn't matter if you're 100%. You've earned the opportunity to play. You didn't get the guarantee in that offer, that scholarship offer, to automatically be on the field. And when you're coming in and you've got 9 on the field, and Sue Enquist said this great, one of the winningest coaches ever for UCLA. She said, let's just do easy math. Let's take 27. If you've got 9 on the field, you got 2/3 of you are on the bench. When you look at the game in a different way, and you have to say to yourself, am I a no-brainer, no doubt about it starter? Is there an absolute need? Am I going to be one of a few? Now, pitchers, you're different, man. Man, you guys are pitching in a bullpen environment now. You have to figure out being part of the solution because we're just not seeing one pitcher anymore taking the show like Kaylani Ricketts. My daughter had to play against her, and Chelsea Thomas, and all the big superstars that literally pitched every inning. Those things, you don't see that anymore, even at OU. I mean, they're pitching a battery of pitchers and catchers. And so you really have to have a lot more information about and understand who's committing. Do you know how hard it is? And Jackie helped me last year in September. We tried to track every 25 commitment. Man, my fingers got tired. If you think about the fact I got to track 8,000 kids who get committed, after December, I was done with it. So I have it available. It is a great resource, but those are your top kids that came off the board. It doesn't mean a few more won't go, but it is a tough thing to track because you don't know what's really going to happen and what kind of money each student athlete got and what their opportunity, is it a walk on, is it a low money, but it helps you understand who else is committing because the biggest complaint I get from student athletes is the coach doesn't like me, they're not treating me nice, and my teammates, I don't like my teammates. I even had a coach bring up some personal challenges that they have in teams when there's relationship fighting and significant other fighting, and you've got the baseball team and the football team distractions. There's all kinds of things that happen. Mike, go for it.
Yeah, hey, to that, we had a coach who coached with us last year, phenomenal, and she imparted some wisdom that I really thought was great, and I think should be shared. So she basically said, hey, go to the camp and go, understand who you're talking to and go find somebody who doesn't play and go ask them what they think. Right. And if you, and we've had some of our players go do that. And there's some who say, "Oh, I love it. It's great. I'd never leave here." And then there's others who will tell you, "Oh no, hey, I'm out the next second." And then you got to figure out, okay, hey, is are they out just because they're not playing, or is there issues, or whatever? And usually they'll kind of dish it, but you get a better understanding of what the culture is going in, when you have that understanding. And I think that's a big thing. I think we get, like, again, so buzz happy about what's going on there, but you do have to play with these, girls or boys if it's baseball, and have to be around them. And there's a personality gel. So you gotta, that's a trick I think you can use to help you better understand the team. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
In the coach too, how do they handle those situations? So Mike's daughters are 2026, so he's going to get my list of things to chat with when they go on their visits, and really to start observing, right? And Mike, you hit the nail on the head there with that one, because you got to look at the culture of the team, because when they take you on your visit, you're going to get the girls that are super sugary sweet, that are the best spokespeople for the team. You're not going to see the girl over there grunting and complaining and not so happy about it, right? But you also don't want to choose your destination on somebody else's dissatisfaction, because you also don't know what they're doing to be in that situation, right? So I do a model that I love, that I learned in corporate America years ago: control, no control, and what do you influence? And it's literally just brainstorming those components. And one of the funniest things is when they say, "Well, the coach doesn't like me." The batting lineup, I'm not playing my position. You get all of the things that we all hear about, even in travel ball. And I'll go, okay, so what do you control? Oh, well, my attitude and this and that. They never talk about what more they should be doing in order to influence the change, right? So I always say, hey, the coach, you'll be the coach's favorite when you hit more. And then they look at me kind of cross-eyed like, "Ooh, that's kind of punchy, right?" But really, they're not picking favorites because of you as a person. It's the output, the contribution, the attitude, the willingness to learn and grow, and to do something different. So you really got to consider those things in the process too, Mike. And you guys are going to see it, but that's the observant part. That's the self assessment part of the recruiting process that all of you need to learn from. You should be watching games on TV. Watch the dugout. You can see some of the sorry faces with their chin, or their fists under their chin on the side inside the dugout. Like, what's that girl's role? If you got 27, what's your role? Oh, you're a bullpen catcher, then do it so good. Go for it, Jackson.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't realize is like there are those who are very like apparent, right? Just like you're saying, like it's very obvious that they are not happy at their location, right? Then there's those who transfer because their coaches changed and they're like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm not staying here. And then there are those who they may be the face of the program, right? And all of a sudden they decide I'm packing my bags and I'm going elsewhere. So you never know where the movement is going to really lie. I mean, you really start to hear about things as you hit regionals, and then as teams get knocked out, you hear more and more, and then it floods, right? But there's also a strategy, right? Do you wait to go in the portal? Do you see an opening that you may want, right? It all depends. Do you go in too late and then you don't find anything? All the spots are sort of there. It's really intricate, and it is a balance of understanding: are you happy? Is it worth leaving? Am I really going to have another shot? It's important to sort of weigh those things.
Yeah, that's fabulous, amazing. And I had one say, "Well, what if I want to come back?" What team wants you when you just announced to the world that you're quitting? You want to go shopping, you want to go to Nordstrom's and window shop and see if you can get a deal. I mean, I've seen it only happen once to one player I watched from afar. I didn't represent her. And I was like, well, good for that coach. He, somehow talked that kid into staying. I don't know what it was, or they didn't understand, what they were doing, or a parent, again, a parent not understanding the effects of this. And by the way, we record this. It's going to stay on our media page for Collegiate Sports Advocates, so that others can come back and listen to it. It's so important. But another coach made a concept to me, and Jackie, you said it when you talked about regionals. Everybody's heading into regionals. Everybody's heading into their conference tournament. If they don't win, that's when they're scared. Man, if you don't win, your team's gonna quit. You got 6, 7, 8 people. It was 20% of the portal. If you did the math on the 300 college, I think there's 307 that are being ranked with their RPIs. If you do that times an average of 25 players on the team, and you have 15 that didn't find a place out, it was like 20% don't replace, or 20% went in the portal. I mean, it's crazy. So you think 20% on a roster of 25, that's a lot of kids going in the portal. And there was a lot of talk about it last year. The big schools, man, they lose some kids. It is what it is. They want to be key contributors. Why would you take a kid like that and they see the future like, I'm never going to get on the field and I respect the kid in front of me? There's no shame to that game either. But I think that's more rare than not, but more common in that elite group of people that are moving. But win or hop in the portal was the quote this coach said to me. Man, so what contribution did you individually make to helping your team win? There's so much you can do, and this has always been something I've talked about. This is the most individual team sport you'll ever play. And Jackie was a big soccer player. My daughter played. You can't do it all by yourself, because if you have to set up a pass and somebody can't receive it and pass it back in the formation that you just ran, you can't do it all by yourself. Pitcher and my youngest one that played soccer, she was funny in softball. She, in a 8 and under tournament, she struck out 15 batters and hit a home run. Okay, she won the game. All right, single-handedly. We went to travel ball after that. That was rec ball. But I mean, those are funny stories, right? That doesn't happen in college. You cannot be single-handedly. There's not a pitcher out there that's single-handedly winning games. Go for it, Jackie.
This popped into my mind, and potentially controversial, just depending on how you see the portal, right? Everybody sees the portal differently. I do think that there's a time where, whether it be the coaching staff or you at that university or within that program, you may hit a plateau, right? And often it happens, whether it be a fifth year or so on, right? Where you may need an example. If you're a pitcher, right, you're doing really well. But then you sort of, you don't think that there's anything left you can get out of that. You need a change of mindset, a change of philosophy, something there to go into the portal, and find that other school or that other coach, right? For a pitcher, pitching coach, so on. And that could be super beneficial. It's probably something that doesn't get talked about a lot. Most people think that a lot of the top level pitchers just move. But it's important to note that you don't have to just transfer because you don't like the place or you're not playing, right? There can be other reasons that you enter that portal. But even when you have that in mind, it's still a gamble. You know what you know at your university, right? You're still going in. Maybe you go to a different pitching coach. Maybe that's worse. Yeah, on the face value, you go there, they sell you the program, they sell you everything. This is amazing here. But how do you know? Right? And so it's a lot to think about when you hit regional time, and transfer portal comes up almost like every week. I feel like almost every day too. You really hear these conversations. So keep your ears open as you see on Twitter and so on, because you're going to hear all the reasons why student athletes are going in. Some you may not agree with.
Right. Oh, you hit the nail on the head. And it's easy. It's just like, social media in general. It's easy for us as fans to view it and judge it and not understand, the reality behind it. There was a lot on Jordy Ball. I'm all about, your state and your country kind of person, right? I loved when she went back to Nebraska because that's where she was originally recruited. And it's no disrespect to Oklahoma. That's an amazing program. They gave her every opportunity in the world. Did it hurt? Yeah. Did I like it for OU? No. But I also liked it for Nebraska. I think it gave some wind in their sails to, a hometown kid, a hometown hero coming back and lifting things up. So, it was hard to dislike that it happened, to like it or not like it, or to pass judgment, I guess is the best way, because there's some truth to the goodness and the bad on both sides of it. But sadly, it didn't turn out like they thought it would either, and that's by nobody's fault. I mean, who would have ever considered that was an issue where she would hurt herself, that dangerously? But so somebody said to me too, for some of these bigger kids, these coaches are afraid that it's a year by year concept. Like, how do you build from a coach's perspective a team that's not got their right foot out the door at every minute? I mean, do you change your approach? Is it more kissy feely goo goo? I mean, we had one kid last year we had heard about that went in that said, "Look, I'm leaving because I don't like the soft coaching approach. I don't like the everybody's not living to higher standards and working harder." Well, that's her choice. Yes, Jackie, go
I
ahead.
think, one thing that I've sort of seen this year and attempting to look at programs and how they've utilized their freshmen, right? So they're true freshmen coming on in, and you're, yeah, you're bringing all these transfer portal, people, also those, who are upperclassmen. And what about the freshmen, right? You're nervous. Coaches are nervous if they don't see any time, whether it be, running bases, whatever it is, like that, they're going to leave. Right. So it's not only a question of, oh, like, where am I going, today in my program, but how am I going to keep all these kids who've committed to me staying committed to this message of maturing within this program, when in reality they, you coach them for a whole year, 2 years, and then they leave because, maybe they have one person ahead of them and they don't want to compete, and they're like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to go somewhere else. Really building culture in a program is huge, but it doesn't, in 2024, it does not guarantee, even when you have the best culture, that people are going to stay. And that's what sort of, a lot of the people, where a lot of the portal gets, its bad rep, because it has sort of created this issue.
And it came from travel ball. The sad news is it came from travel ball. The amount of movement and not understanding, what you're doing and where you're trying to go. And gosh, I love Mike Zimmer's team. Some of their players are on here, but they have created a culture where kids want to stay. They want to be part of it. They're delivering the tangible things. They're delivering value back to the kids. Does it mean a kid leaves here or there? No. There's been it is what it is, but there's always going to be some kind of movement. But I think the guttiness of the culture in travel ball is, oh, I'm not happy, I'm not getting what I want, then I go to the next team, the next team, the next team, when they don't even understand what it is they want or what the destination is. So culture is, a big thing in the hot shot organization that Mike's part of, and culture means everything, and we're trying to show these student athletes that you're part of the culture and that you need to commit to the culture, because you can't create the culture by yourself. You have to find a sisterhood or a group of them that are, live in the same vision, mission, and goals, just like a corporation, right? So, some of the other things that these coaches talked about is just some of the behaviors on the team that they kind of hope some of them do leave, right? The negative teammate that just can't seem to figure out that there's anything great about it. And Jackie, you're right. The freshmen am I doing enough to keep that freshman happy? Are they going to buy in? Or is there some, dirty travel ball saying, oh, you're not playing there. I'll call up my buddy over at XYZ University and get you over there. A lot of that dirtiness happens. And I don't ever think it's in the benefit of the student athlete. I think you're, again, being used as a pawn and serving their ego up versus actually doing what's right for the student athlete. So I'm going to give one of my last phrases and then open it up. If you guys have any questions, I know we've been very softball centric, but I haven't seen a lot of baseball gentlemen jump in here. But, we talked about control, no control, and what do you influence, but making sure that you have the right consult before, one, before you commit to schools, and two, before you even decide to leave. There's so much control over staying where you're valued and doing what you do, but understanding the end all, right? Boys are still chasing the MLB dream. Our pro world isn't necessarily big money. Even NIL is not necessarily this rich stream. It's for very, very few, and it's not for the rest. So figure out what your end game is. I like what Jackie said. She has a PhD. She's a doctor. I care about the education because they can't take that from you. You earned that. You have that. That takes you farther in your life. It's a little ball that we're playing a game with, and we're having a great time doing it. And we're getting opportunities in college that my generation didn't even have. I'm really aging myself here, but we didn't have Title IX. There was not college softball in my generation, so that's why I'm passionate behind it. Jackie, I want to give a personal thanks to you before we shut down because today I was going it alone. I called Mike and Jackie, help me out. I need some people because I was trying to get travel ball coaches on here, and of course, college coaches don't like this topic because they themselves don't really know if it's working for them or not. It is a year to year portal concept. It's a year to year roster concept. We have to be concerned about that. How are they going to create a team, and what part of being rich in your culture and rich in your desires to be part of something great versus all in it for myself? Jackie, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, always happy to be up here. I love it in this space and what you provide here for the student athletes. So, honestly, I like to talk to everybody who's in here who's recruiting or those who are listening and sort of learning about the overall system of it. The number one thing, and I'll say it, day in and day out, if you are not factoring in your academics right now and where you are, and even within the next 5 years as a softball player, then, you're putting yourself a little bit behind. Just the sport is not there. Will it get there? I do think eventually after your 4 years, as you go professional, I think that we do start building something as we continue. But right now, you need to set yourself up, not just for softball, but for your academics in life. And so that should be a factor. And honestly, you do see some student athletes who do go into the portal and use that academic piece. I mean, you saw Kern go from, yes, a good academic school in Indiana, who then went to Stanford, right? Yes, you want to battle between the differences of Indiana and Stanford, you can, but it's still a prestigious name in terms of Stanford. You find those reasons of why, and there has to be a supplemental reason other than softball for your why in terms of really looking at the schools, because every school that you're going to look at has softball. So find that reason. If you go into the portal, look to come out of it better, and in that capacity, come out a better student athlete overall.
Intentional goals, right, Jackie?
Yes.
Awesome. Mike. There he
Yeah,
is.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear. I wish I could hear what Jackie was saying. Is that
What?
good?
Oh, it didn't work
Nope.
again? Oh, that's a shame. She brought it in about education and about being very intentional and having purpose to your movement in the portal. And I summarized that, Jackie, but very powerful. So, Mike, I just wanted to thank you personally. Mike has tell us the name of your Facebook page again,
Coaching softball tips, tricks, and drills. Um,
and your readership right now is how many?
I think we're like at 150,000. It's probably up to like 155,000, something like that.
Awesome. It's got great resources, a whole community of people that like to share. Mike does a great job of it. But I really want to thank all of our listeners. Some of you are loyal listeners every Monday night. I appreciate it. We're getting into the heat of softball for college. I don't know what I'll do next Monday, if I do it at all. I kind of come in fall and do it, and then I come in again in kind of the March and April timeframe. So I'm going to play it by ear and see if there's a big, huge topic that's something you guys want to talk about. And I will bring it up again next Monday at 7. But can you all give a share to the site again and tell them what you liked about the space here tonight so that we can continue to grow our listeners and grow the game and grow the knowledge necessary to make our sport the great sport that it is. So thank you again, my dear friend Jackie and my great friend Mike Zimmer. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. And thank you, loyal listeners. We love you, our little hot shots. Have a great night and hopefully a great week. Talk to you soon.